Welcome to Motivational Humanity. You are not alone.
What if the greatest pain you'll ever feel isn't from something that happens to you, but from something you allowed to go on far too long? Because what I'm about to share with you, it's not a self-help lecture. It's not a list of tips. It is an honest, soul-level conversation that most women your age have never been given permission to have. And if you have ever caught yourself lying awake at 2 a.m., running through a list of people you've hurt, people who've hurt you, choices you made, choices you didn't make, the truth of your own life. Before we go deeper, I want to say something clearly. You are not here by accident. Something in you, some quiet, persistent voice, brought you to this moment. And that voice, that is the part of you we're going to spend this time honoring. You see, women of your generation were raised to be extraordinarily skilled at one particular thing: taking care of everyone else. You were taught, often without a single word being spoken, that your needs were secondary, that your discomfort was something to manage quietly, that your dreams were negotiable, and you did it beautifully. You showed up, you stayed, you gave. But here is the question that I want to plant in your heart right now, gently, the way you'd plant a seed in soft spring soil. Who has been taking care of you? Not just physically. Who has been protecting your emotional sanctuary? Who has been guarding the threshold of your peace? Because here is what 30 years of psychological research, and more importantly, real women's stories, have taught me. The pain you are most afraid of feeling in your remaining years, it almost never comes from outside. It comes from the slowly accumulated weight of everything you silenced inside yourself. And that is what we are going to address today. The pain you fear most in your later years rarely comes from what life did to you. It comes from what you quietly did to yourself, in the name of keeping the peace. I want to introduce you to a concept that changed the way I understand human suffering. I call it emotional debt. Not financial debt, not obligation, but the specific kind of pain that builds up quietly, invisibly, when we consistently choose harmony over honesty, when we say yes and mean a please no, when we smile through something that broke a piece of us, when we forgive without ever allowing ourselves to feel the wound first. Here is what the research tells us, and what I've witnessed in decades of work with women exactly like you. Emotions that are not processed do not disappear. They accumulate. They live in the body as tension, as sleeplessness, as the inexplicable sadness that arrives on a Sunday afternoon when nothing is technically wrong. They live in the pattern of relationships you keep choosing. The ones that feel familiar because they repeat something you never resolved. The brilliant psychologist Carl Jung once said that what we do not make conscious, what we refuse to look at, comes to us as fate, as the same argument, the same disappointment, the same hollow feeling at the end of another year. You know that feeling. I believe most women watching this know exactly what I'm talking about. So let me ask you, with full gentleness and full honesty, what emotional debt have you been carrying? What pain have you been managing instead of healing? What relationship have you been maintaining at the cost of your own peace? Because you were taught that your discomfort is less important than everyone else's comfort. This is the first place we must go, not to blame, not to anger, but to acknowledgement. Because healing, real healing, doesn't begin with forgiveness. It begins with the radical, courageous act of finally telling yourself the truth. I want to talk to you about the word sanctuary. Not a building, not a church, though it can be that. I mean the interior architecture of a woman who has learned to protect her own peace. A woman who has, perhaps later in life than she wished, built a room inside herself that no one else is allowed to redecorate. Here is something I need you to understand, and I need you to let it land. Not just in your mind, but in your body. You are allowed to have a life that is organized around your own flourishing, not at the expense of love, not in isolation, but alongside love, within your relationships, as part of who you are to the people you care for. Because here is the truth that women of your generation were rarely told. You cannot give from a vessel that has been perpetually emptied. Generosity that comes from depletion isn't generosity. It's survival dressed up as sacrifice. And the people you love most, the ones you've given everything to, they feel the difference. Children who grew up watching their mother disappear into service learn however unintentionally, that women's needs are negotiable. But children who grow up watching a woman honor herself, who move through a room with quiet dignity, who say no without apology, who protect their rest and their joy as fiercely as they protect everyone else's. Those children learn that they are allowed to do the same. Your healing, dear one, is never just for you. It ripples forward into every life you touch. Building your inner sanctuary begins with 3 practices that I have seen transform the emotional lives of women in their 50s, 60s, and 70s, women who had spent decades believing it was too late. What if the greatest pain you'll ever feel isn't from something that happens to you, but from something you allowed to go on far too long? Because what I'm about to share with you, it's not a self-help lecture. It's not a list of tips. It is an honest, soul-level conversation that most women your age have never been given permission to have. And if you have ever caught yourself lying awake at 2 a.m., running through a list of people you've hurt, people who've hurt you, choices you made, choices you didn't make, the truth of your own life. Before we go deeper, I want to say something clearly. You are not here by accident. Something in you, some quiet, persistent voice, brought you to this moment. And that voice, that is the part of you we're going to spend this time honoring. You see, women of your generation were raised to be extraordinarily skilled at one particular thing, taking care of everyone else. You were taught, often without a single word being spoken, that your needs were secondary, that your discomfort was something to manage quietly, that your dreams were negotiable, and you did it beautifully. You showed up, you stayed, you gave. It is never too late. Not journaling for anyone else's benefit, not a gratitude list, though those have their place. I mean, a private, unflinching, compassionate accounting of your life as it actually is. You ask yourself, where am I depleted? Where am I at peace? Who fills me and who empties me? Where have I been saying yes when my entire soul has been saying no? You do this without judgment. You do this the way a trusted doctor examines a patient, with clinical clarity and profound care. Because the purpose isn't self-criticism. The purpose is navigation. You cannot chart a new course until you know where you are. A woman who has learned to protect her own peace is not being selfish. She is being the most generous version of herself, because she finally has something real to give. Now I want to talk about something that I know, for many women of your generation, carries weight and complexity. I want to reclaim this word from the harsh, clinical space it sometimes occupies in pop psychology, because the truest boundaries I have ever witnessed in a human life are not walls. They are not coldness. They are not punishment. The truest boundaries are born from self-knowledge and expressed through grace. Grace, that word. Grace is not weakness. Grace is the voice that says, I love you and I cannot do this. Grace is the email you don't respond to after 8 p.m. Grace is leaving a conversation that has become a place where your dignity is not safe. Grace is choosing yourself without requiring anyone else's permission. Now, I understand that for many of you, the idea of prioritizing yourself still carries the faint echo of guilt. You were formed in a culture, perhaps reinforced by family, faith, or marriage, that equated selflessness with goodness. And I want to honor that. I want to fully honor the love behind that formation. But I also want to gently offer you this. The God of every tradition I have ever studied, the universe, the divine, whatever name you use, did not create you to be invisible. You were not put on this earth to be a vessel that holds everyone else up while quietly drowning. You were put here to live, fully, presently, with your whole complicated, gorgeous, tired, resilient, worthy self. And part of living fully, especially in these years, which are not your final years, but your most intentional years, part of it is making conscious choices about where your life force goes. You get to decide what gets your flame, not your history, not your family's expectations, not the version of you that learned to make herself small to keep the peace. The truest boundary is not a wall. It is a woman who has finally learned to speak the truth of her own life, with love, without apology, and with the full grace of someone who has earned the right. Brene was an Australian nurse who spent years caring for people in the final weeks of their lives. And she wrote down what they told her they regretted most. Do you know what the number one regret was across hundreds of people, across years of listening? It wasn't, "I wish I'd worked more." It wasn't, "I wish I'd kept the house cleaner." The number one regret was this: "I wish I'd had the courage to live a life true to myself, not the life others expected of me." The second most common: "I wish I hadn't worked so hard." The fifth, and the one that breaks my heart most specifically for women: "I wish I had let myself be happier." I wish I had let myself be happier. As if happiness were something she had to permit herself to have. As if joy required a justification. As if she needed to earn the right to feel good about her own life. My love, I say this to you with everything I have. You do not need to wait until your final weeks to give yourself permission to live. You do not need a diagnosis or a loss or a crisis to justify the reordering of your priorities. The years ahead of you are not a countdown. They are a canvas. And you are the one holding the brush. Before we move into the final and most important part of this conversation, I want to ask you to do one thing right now. Think of one woman in your life. A sister, a friend, a daughter, a neighbor, someone you know who has been giving too much for too long. Someone who has been putting herself last and wondering why she feels so empty. Share this video with her. Right now, before we go further. Not because it's content, but because it's a conversation she deserves to have. Sometimes the most profound gift we can give another woman is simply to say, "I see you. And I thought of you when I saw this." That is love in action. That is community. That is grace. Now let's talk practically and psychologically about how to actually reorder your priorities so that the years ahead of you carry more peace and less pain. I want to offer you what I call the 3 columns of a well-lived life. Column 1, what drains me. Column 2, what sustains me. Column 3, what I've been avoiding. Column 1, what drains me. This is not a list of people you resent. It is an honest accounting of where your energy goes and doesn't come back. The relationship where you always leave feeling smaller. The obligation you've never examined. The habit of over-explaining, over-apologizing, over-giving. Write it down, not to punish it, to see it. Column 2, what sustains me. This is where your healing lives. The walk that restores you. The friendship that fills the room with oxygen. The creative act that reminds you that you are more than your roles. When did you last spend 2 uninterrupted hours inside column 2? If it's been months or years, that is not a character flaw. That is information, and information is always the beginning of change. Column 3, what I've been avoiding. This is the bravest column. This is the conversation you haven't had. The grief you haven't fully moved through. The dream you dismissed because it seemed too late or too selfish. The part of your own story that you've been editing out because it made someone else uncomfortable. Here is what I know about avoidance. It takes far more energy to keep something hidden than to finally, gently let it be seen. The thing you're afraid will break you. It is already living inside you, and it is not asking you to be destroyed by it. It is asking to be witnessed. Sit with it. Name it. Perhaps with a therapist, perhaps with a trusted friend, perhaps in the pages of a private journal at 6 a.m. before the world wakes up. And then, with whatever pace feels true to you, walk through it, not around it through. Because on the other side of that door is not devastation. On the other side of that door is you, the version of you that has been waiting patiently all these years to be finally fully free. The thing you've been avoiding is not waiting to destroy you. It's been waiting to free you. Walk through it, not around it. Your peace lives on the other side. I want to speak directly to the season of life you are in. Because our culture, youth obsessed, distraction addicted, relentlessly forward-moving, does not often pause to tell you this. The years between 55 and 75 are, psychologically and spiritually, among the most powerful of a human life. These are not your twilight years. These are your wisdom years. The research of Erik Erikson, one of the great developmental psychologists of the 20th century, called this stage of life the time of generativity versus stagnation. The question the soul is asking in these years is not, how much time do I have left? The question is, what will I make of what remains? And the women who answer that question with intention, the ones who dare to say, I will spend these years becoming more fully myself, not less. Those are the women who, in their later years, glow with something that has no other name but peace. Not because their lives were easy, Not because they avoided loss, but because they stopped abandoning themselves. They stopped waiting for permission. They started living consciously, purposefully, with the full weight of their earned wisdom behind every choice. That is available to you now. Not after one more sacrifice. Not after the children are settled, or the house is sorted, or the world gives you its blessing. Now, this is your time, and it is not too late. Before I let you go, and I mean that literally, let you go into the rest of this day, into the rest of this life, I want you to do one thing, not tomorrow, not when you feel ready. Now, place your hand on your heart and say, quietly or out loud to no one but yourself, I am allowed to matter. My peace is worth protecting. My life, all of it, has been worth living. And if you found something true in this conversation today, something that moved you, or named something unnamed, or gave language to a feeling you've been carrying for years, please share this with one woman in your life. One sister, one friend, one woman who has been so busy holding everyone else up that she's forgotten she deserves to be held too. You may be the reason she finally exhales today. So as you go from here, may you carry less of what was never yours to carry. May you speak, at least once this week, a truth you have been swallowing. May you say no to something that costs you more than it gives. May you look at your own reflection with the same compassion you have given so freely to everyone else. And may you know, in the marrow of your bones, in the quietest room of your heart, that you are not behind. You are not broken. You are not too late. You are a woman in full, complex and worthy and still becoming. And that is more than enough. That has always been enough. Go well, dear one. Go gently. And go free.